Friends, I'm happy to announce that Straight Talk has partnered with Blue Line Roasting Company to bring you delicious coffee to enjoy while you listen to this podcast. Blue Line Roasting Company also serves our first responders by giving a portion of all net proceeds to numerous organizations who support them. Order today at bluelineroasting.com. That's bluelineroasting.com. And don't forget, when you join the Straight Shooter VIP Club, you receive a free coffee sample and a mug, plus invitations to private podcast events. Things may be so bad. Biden is such a weak candidate. I don't think anybody, including Trump, can beat him in 2024 if the conditions are right. But here's the biggest thing that has to happen. The GOP has to do a better job of raising money. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Straight Talk Podcast. I am your host, America's Sheriff David Clark. Thanks for tuning in. So the FBI is at it again. And as you know from listening to episodes of this podcast, one of my main targets is the FBI, that corrupt agency. Corrupt from top to bottom. They don't feel accountable to anybody. It's rogue, and it's a runaway institution with awesome powers and authority. It can ruin your life. They can take away your freedom. They can behave illegally and nobody knows about it. And not only that, but there's nothing anybody feels that they can do about it. So now they're back on Capitol Hill, trying to get what's called Section 702 of the USA Freedom Act or Patriot Act. They're trying to get it renewed. And they come to Capitol Hill with the same alarmist rhetoric. Over and over and over. Oh, if we don't get these tools here, we'll have another terror attack. Oh, if we don't get these tools, lives will be at stake. You know, they come with this alarmist rhetoric. It's all BS. And of course, the people on Capitol Hill, first of all, they don't know how to question these individuals because of their inexperience at how the intelligence agency works. And the other thing is they're scared. These people in Congress, well, I don't want to get blamed if there's a terror attack. I don't want to get blamed for it. First of all, we are never going to get to zero risk. There's what's called reasonable risk that people have to be willing to assume. Insurance companies do it all the time. They know there's no zero risk when they insure you. But there's a level of risk. They say, we're willing to assume this amount of risk because it's low. And it's probably not likely to happen, but not absolutely not going to happen. And so we have to get this out of our heads that we can create this absolute zero risk when it comes to these intelligence agencies. And first of all, and you've heard me say, they're not that good at what they do anyway. So again, they march up to Capitol Hill, and they're asking to have this Section 702 extended, which I don't think they should. But, you know, Congress has, including the GOP, we're talking about the GOP specifically. They don't have any courage. They're not there to protect freedom. They still say that, oh, freedom and liberty. They don't mean that. Because we don't need Section 702. Some of you may know I have a graduate degree from the United States Naval Academy Postgraduate School, the Center for Homeland Defense and Security. I studied this stuff. I'm not going to sit here and try to get you to believe that I'm an expert, but at least I have a working understanding of the intelligence process, the intelligence agencies, how they work, how they don't work. And I read the 9/11 Commission report. It's some boring reading. But I had to. It was required reading. So I read the 9/11 Commission report put out by the Congress after 9/11 as to what went wrong. Full of errors. I'm talking about the intelligence process, the intelligence agencies. They, of course, said, well, you know, we need extraordinary powers to stop this stuff. No, they don't. They just need to be on their game. And they need to focus on the right things. And it's not moms attending school board meetings. It's not the Proud Boys. It's the terrorist organizations. It's the multinational gangs. But of course, that's too hard. That's the hard stuff. So I come across this column, Washington Times. FBI pleads to keep FISA spy powers despite concern over growing abuses. Here's the problem I have with the FISA process. It's secretive. That's a huge problem. And that's why the FBI and the CIA and the other intelligence agencies like to use it. Because they can behave any way they want, knowing this stuff will probably never see the light of day. The same stuff that they went to the FISA court to get, when they went to get authorization to wiretap a presidential campaign back in 2016, the Trump campaign, they could have easily gone the regular route to the Department of Justice to try to get a search warrant. But here's the problem with that. If they go the regular route, at some point that stuff is made available through FOIA requests. The affidavits and everything, you got to turn the search warrant in, and that can be made public. Whereas if you go to the FISA route, none of it is made public. It's secretive. So they could go to the FISA court and they could lie that they had this dossier from Steele, the Steele dossier, and that it was true and it was this, that, and the other, knowing, no one's ever going to see this. That's why they went the FISA route. I don't like government that operates in secrecy. We have a need, not a want, a little bit of a want. We have a need to know what our government officials are doing within reason at all times. And I know there's confidential stuff, there's secrets. We're not talking about that. But too much is classified as top secret anyway, or secret. Too much. And that whole process needs to be reviewed. And if there's anything that Congress should be working on, it's that sort of stuff. Let's straighten out all of these secret mechanisms that are in place. So that's why they didn't go to a regular, U.S. DOJ attorney to get a search warrant for, or wiretap warrant for the Trump campaign. And probably because the FISA judge is the one that listens to this information. They don't know. They don't know how this process works. Someone comes in, hey, we got this thing. It's good. Oh, lives are at stake. And this FISA judge doesn't want this on his hands or her hands. So they just rubber stamp it. It's a rubber stamp process. And there's no adversarial process, which you need when it comes to this stuff. Competing evidence. Someone on the other side going, well, hold on a second. You claim this, but, we have something else to say about that. It's not available through the FISA process. So this article here from the Times, senior intelligence officials sought to shock Congress Tuesday into renewing controversial spy powers, saying without the 702 section ability to scoop up global communications, the CIA and FBI would struggle to stop Iranian assassination attempts. This stuff's amazing. I'd be embarrassed to go in there and say this stuff and talk like this and use this. Iranian assassination attempts. Chinese hackers. Russia crimes in Ukraine. What does Ukraine have to do with this? And drug smugglers pouring fentanyl across America's southern border. They're not doing anything to stop the fentanyl from getting into the United States. The FBI is not involved in that. That's Customs and Border Patrol. So why does the FBI need powers for that? It says here, but they're fighting an uphill battle after new revelations of appalling abuses, including illegally querying communications from Black Lives Matter protesters, crime victims, and donors to a U.S. political campaign. Well, stop right there. The FBI is not listening in on communications from Black Lives Matter protesters. They simply are not doing that. So it says, and this is the part here that some 278,000 improper queries involving Americans were run on the data between 2016 and 2020, 4-year period. This is recent, 2020. 278,000 improper inquiries. That level of abuse has endangered the existence of Section 702, which will expire at the end of this year unless Congress passes new legislation. They should not reauthorize this, not even with reforms, because the FBI doesn't give a damn about reforms. They're going to behave the way they want. The law be damned. The Constitution be damned. The rule of law be damned. We're going to do what we want, and nobody's going to stop us. Reforms won't work, which is why I say the FBI needs to be abolished. No amount of reforms is going to straighten out this corrupt agency. So it says key lawmakers said no extension will be granted unless it is coupled with major reforms and better transparency on who is getting snooped and why. That's not going to happen. It's all secret. They just classify it. There is no transparency. Here's a quote from the Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman, Dick Durbin. You have to, I hope, understand why some of us are skeptical at this point, Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Richard Durbin told the intelligence officials at a hearing Tuesday. Assistant Attorney General Matt Olson acknowledged the problems. Quote, I don't defend them, he said, but he told the committee not to lose sight of what the 702 program does. Let me stop there. The 702 program does absolutely nothing to disrupt crime, terror, or anything else because this is supposed to be used on foreign nationals, not on U.S. citizens. You go the other route. You go the U.S. DOJ route. You go to assistant U.S. attorney and you make the case to get a search warrant or to do whatever you have to do. You don't go to a secret court to do this. That was designed to snoop on foreign nationals. So I want you to listen now to this exchange between Senator Josh Hawley and this deputy director of the FBI on him trying to persuade Congress to renew Section 702. Listen to this.
Who was fired for the lies to the FISA court for the Carter Page warrant? Who was fired for that? Anybody? Has anybody been held accountable for your institution deliberately lying to a FISA court to get a wiretap on an ongoing presidential campaign?
There is an ongoing disciplinary process with respect to individuals involved in that.
Here's the deal. You're back in front of us asking for the reauthorization of extraordinary authorities. Multiple courts have uncovered extraordinary abuses perpetrated by your agency. You are at the same time concealing information about serious allegations made against the President of the United States, even as your institution also targets his chief political opponent in an unprecedented way. Why would we ever give you the blank check that you want to continue surveilling American citizens in an improper manner? Why would we ever do that?
Senator, we're here to talk about reforms today. I did get confirmation that the query...
No, we're not. We're here to talk about the reauthorization of Section 702. Why would we reauthorize it, given your track record of abuse and illegal improper surveillance and political targeting? Why would we do that? Why would it be appropriate for this body to do that?
That exchange was amazing. First of all, great job by Josh Hawley. He knows how to not let these people talk in circles. Change the subject. Did you hear some of that testimony from that clown deputy director of the FBI? And every time you ask him a question for a direct answer, you never get one. Never. He asks yes or no questions. This is how many people have been fired for these 278,000 improper abuses, improper queries. Well, you know, we have a process. Nobody's been fired. Nobody. And nobody ever will. Because that's not how the FBI behaves. They get caught with their hand in a cookie jar and they just, oh, we're sorry. Oh, it was incidental. That was just a mistake. 278 improper queries involving American citizens were run between 2016 and 2020? Are you kidding me? So this Assistant Attorney General Matt Olson, after acknowledging the problem, yeah, he has to acknowledge the problems because we know about it. He said the 702 data has helped disrupt assassination plots, stop kidnappers, and will allow the FBI to defeat computer ransomware attacks, along with tracking terrorists. You know what they need to be told after an answer like that? Produce the evidence that you stopped that. Because it doesn't exist. They didn't stop anything. They might stop some little gang or something. some drug gang. They'll stand up there with this task force and we arrested 50 people from a street gang and we recovered, 200 pounds of marijuana and some cocaine. And you don't need Section 702 to do that. So he's trying to mix this stuff. He says, well, we need 702 and, because that was for foreign nationals who were accused of being involved, and didn't even have to be accused of terrorism. And used on people outside the country. These foreign nationals outside the country, not Americans in the country, not even Americans out of the country. You need a warrant. It's real simple. So, yeah, you have to say, how many times give me a number. How many times have you thwarted an assassination attempt? That's not classified. Just give them a number. They don't have it. These guys aren't that good anyway of thwarting this stuff. If they were, they would have been able. Check this out. This Matt Olson, this Assistant Attorney General, he goes on to say, we must not forget the lessons of 9/11. He invokes 9/11, which was a foreign terrorist. And they're not asking for a reauthorization to hunt foreign terrorists. They're spying on Americans. They're abusing this Section 702 to spy on Americans. They had the tools on to stop 9/11. It was an intelligence failure. The system was blinking red. Remember, I read the 9/11 Commission report. The system was blinking red, and you know what? They were asleep at the wheel. The terrorists involved in 9/11, they were all on no-fly lists. TSA no-fly lists. How did they get into the frickin' country? They were going back and forth. They didn't just come in a couple days before 9/11. They were going back and forth as they were planning, getting on commercial airliners. Remember, there was information that the FBI had that some Arabs were taking flying lessons and only wanted to know how to take off, and they didn't care about how to land the plane because they didn't plan on landing it. They were going to crash it. That information was passed on from the field office. I think it was in Minneapolis. And they did nothing with it. This is the kind of stuff that this Matt Olson should have been presented with. 9/11? What are you invoking 9/11 for? You guys were asleep at the wheel. These tools wouldn't have helped. These guys were already on no-fly lists, and you allowed them. And by the way, MI6 gave the FBI information, MI6, the UK intelligence, head and shoulders above ours, contacted American intelligence officials and said, hey, these guys are in your country. These are suspected terrorists. And the FBI and the CIA and the National Security Agency and all those people did absolutely nothing. But they want to get this 702 extended because, wow, we got to stop assassination attempts and we got to do. No. See, these people are slick. He invokes 9/11. And he should have been presented with, Mr. Olson, you realize that the 9/11 terrorists were on no-fly lists and you were aware they were in the country because the FBI, the MI6 let you know? What did you do about it? So all this, well, we need the tools. This is all just generic hyperbole and platitudes. That's all this is. Oh, the world's going to end if we don't get, well, let the world end. So, it says here, back to the story here, Section 702, part of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, grew out of the 2001 terrorist attack when the Bush administration concluded it needed more to track foreigners' communications. See? They needed more to attract foreigners' communication, not Americans. Yet 278,000 times improper queries involving Americans were run on the data between 2016 and 2020. This was designed for foreign nationals, foreign terrorists, mainly not outside the United States, but if they're inside the United States, I have no problem with them tracking them here. They didn't do anything with the 9/11 hijackers. These guys were hiding in plain sight. It was known they were planning a terrorist attack. That information was known by our intelligence officials. They just didn't know it was going to involve commercial airliners. I mean, you're not going to know everything. But here they're asking for authorization because, fentanyl, that's not what this is designed for. We have a process in place for that. So back to the story here, as envisioned, Section 702 scoops the data up and allows it to be stored by U.S. agencies, and I don't like that. Why are they storing it? If you're collecting information on United States citizens, you shouldn't be storing it. So then it goes on to say here, these agencies are not supposed to target U.S. citizens, but since U.S. communications are also scooped up, queries can sometimes return data from Americans even though no warrant was obtained. Why are you saving it? It's not supposed to be obtained. Even if you did it accidentally, why are you storing it? And I don't think it's by accident. So it says that wasn't much of a reassurance for some senators who pointed to the recently revealed abuses at the FBI, combined with an already palpable sense of distrust within the Bureau. This agency cannot be trusted, not with this kind of authority. No way. I'll take the risk. I'm willing, as a U.S. citizen, to assume the risk because there is no absolute zero risk. There is no zero risk. I'm not giving away my freedom to try to get to the zero risk. There's no such thing. So it says Senator Mike Lee, Utah Republican, said he's been raising issues of FISA abuse for years, and each time is told that the FBI has good people and strong procedures in place. See, they just come up with these platitudes, this BS. Oh, we got good things in place, and we're working on this every day, and we're making improvements. Nothing changes. These abuses happened over 4 years, and they couldn't stop it because they don't want to stop it because nobody's held accountable. Somebody should be. Folks, these are civil rights violations. When a law enforcement officer violates somebody's civil rights, they're hauled into federal court. Sometimes it's criminal, but it's oftentimes it's a civil matter, and municipalities have to pay out millions of dollars for the abuses. How come that doesn't happen with the FBI? They're violating American civil rights. The Constitution doesn't matter to the FBI. Well, we have to do this because the sky will fall. Terrorists will attack. People will be killed. It's all BS. So, story here says, yet abuses keep piling up. Bingo. Nothing changes, and nothing will. I believe if they didn't renew Section 702, the FBI would still keep doing it. That's what I believe. They say, we don't care about that. We're going to do what we think we have to do to save America. I don't need saving from the FBI or the CIA. I take that back. I do need saving. I need my rights protected. I need to be saved from the abuse of my civil and constitutional rights by these intelligence agencies. So, it says here, quote, first they tell us there are no problems. Then they tell us we'll fix them because we got good people and new policies. This time it's going to be different. Only later we find out that the FBI conducted more and more illegal searches in violation of America's constitutional rights. I just said that. Quote, this is what I find so insufferable. This is what I find so incredibly insulting. So then Olson's response, quote, I share the frustration that you express with the lack of compliance that we've seen in the past years from the FBI. What I can tell you is those compliance problems predate some of the very significant changes the FBI has put in place. No, it doesn't. The 278,000 were only between 2016 and 2020. So what is he talking about? Predates some of the significant changes, but he can't tell you what the changes are. So Olson says, but he also said the cost of losing the tool outweighs those worries about abuse. No, it does not. As Ben Franklin said, those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. Spot on. You have these people, well, if it just stops a terror attack, well, if we just stop one. No, BS. I'm not willing to give up freedom and liberty to stop one terrorist attack. Do your job and do a better job of it. Get better at what you do, intelligence officials. You're not as good as MI6. You're not as good as Mossad, the intelligence agency of Israel. Go learn from them on how to thwart this stuff and prevent it and lower the chance, not zero, before it's disrupted, or try to disrupt it, I should say. So, of course, it says, this Matt Olson, without 702, we'd be missing essential information on the dangerous groups and individuals behind overseas fentanyl production and distribution. What the hell is he talking about? He also said if the data collection were to go away, it would mean risking the lives of CIA officers and their contacts to try to acquire the information using more personal methods. Just go to a regular court. Just go to a regular court. This is so important. The NSA, the country's top signals intelligence agency, says its compliance rate for properly targeted queries of the data is higher than 99%. No, it's not. Then how do you get 278,000 bad queries? So, of course, Mr. Olson, the Assistant Attorney General, he's got an excuse here. Mr. Olson said the large number of wrong queries had to be contextualized. Well, of course, saying that more than 100,000 of those queries were attributed to a single bad batch query. Really? One produces 100,000? And the big thing for me here is nobody's ever held accountable. This stuff happens over and over and over and over and over again, and they can't stop it. You know why they can't stop it? They don't want to stop it. This is how they behave. So the Assistant Attorney General said the administration is open to changes to Section 702, but they cannot be big enough to undermine the effectiveness of the program. This program is not effective. Let me take that back. What it's effective at doing is scooping up Americans' communications without a warrant. That's what it's effective at doing. So, how are people on the outside feeling? Let's turn the page. This is from trendingpoliticsnews.com. On a poll taken, majority of Americans want the FBI to be abolished or significantly reformed. A recent online poll found that a majority of Americans want the FBI to be significantly reformed, if not abolished outright. The poll was conducted and comes just after Special Counsel John Durham released his long-awaited report on the Trump-Russia investigation. Durham ultimately concluded that the FBI opened the probe without sufficient evidence and mainly relied on the Clinton campaign-funded Steele dossier. And you want to trust these people? They knew exactly what they were doing. They did it with intent because they were hell-bent on stopping Donald Trump from becoming the 45th president of the United States. Hell-bent. That's insurrection, ladies and gentlemen. The survey also follows a series of congressional hearings where multiple FBI whistleblowers laid out instances of FBI corruption, including targeting parents at school board meetings, the use of illegal surveillance on January 6 suspects, and the retaliation against whistleblowers. See what I mean? This isn't about stopping Iranian assassinations. It's not about stopping fentanyl. It's not about stopping terrorist attack. This stuff is targeting American citizens without a warrant and who are not suspected of being involved in crime. That's significant. So it says here, a plurality of respondents would prefer to have Congress step in and reform the FBI to prevent its interference in future elections. What? Prevent its interference in future elections? They did it in the last two presidential elections, even after trying to change the results of the 2016 election. They did it again in the 2020 election over Hunter Biden. So they did it in two successive elections. The FBI interfering in U.S. elections. That's serious stuff. So some more about the poll here. An additional 24% of respondents said the FBI should be shut down entirely and rebuilt from scratch. That's where I'm at. If we want to recreate a new agency with new policies and procedures, fine. We're not reforming. You don't take a rotten apple and bite off the side that's the rot hasn't infected yet. You throw the whole damn apple away and get a new apple. I mean, think about this. I like to call it, you heard me say this, the turd in the punch bowl. If there's a turd in the punch bowl, taking out the turd doesn't make the punch okay to drink. It's a bad batch. Now the turd's in there. Get some new punch. So this is what they're suggesting here as well. Let's, reform it. Let's take the turd out and then start from there. No, I wouldn't drink from that, would you? So it says just 15% of respondents felt like the FBI should be left alone because it has learned its lesson. Who the hell thinks that? If they learned their lesson after 2016, why'd they interfere in the 2020 election? And they're going to interfere in the 2024 election. They're already doing it. With this harassment of Donald Trump. They're trying to affect the 2024 election. So another recent poll conducted by Rasmussen found that 60% of Americans believe the Bureau helped cover up crimes involving President Biden and his family. 60%. 48% of the respondents believe an FBI cover-up involvement of the document, the Hunter Biden thing, is very likely. 48%. Now, I want you to listen to this exchange again. This is Josh Hawley, Senate Judiciary, and this clown from this director of the FBI. Deputy director of the FBI. But listen to how this guy. This is like trying to get a hold of a water balloon, a long one, and you grab it in the middle, and you're trying to get a hold of it, and then it collapses on one side. You try to grab that, and it goes back. These people are slippery. He changes the subject. He talks about something else. He goes into a spin about lives will be at stake. These people are good at that. They know how to duck and dodge. They know how to not answer the question or answer it with a non-answer. They're good at this. But so is Hawley. And this is the kind of stuff you need. Bring these people out in public. By the way, Durham is supposed to testify to Congress this week behind closed doors. You heard me talk about that in a previous podcast. Why is this behind closed doors? There's nothing secret about the Durham administration. He published a report that he made public. Why are they doing it behind closed doors? And not one GOP member, I think he's supposed to do the House and the Senate, and stood up and said, why are we doing this behind closed doors? The American people should hear this. But oh no, we got to do this behind closed doors. And everybody seems to be okay with it. I'm not. I want to know what happened. And this is about, in part, that when Durham issued subpoenas and wanted people to testify. They just blew him off, and he allowed it. You know, I've used that example. If the FBI came to me or the Justice Department, whatever, with a subpoena and said, we want this, well, yeah, that exists, but lives are at stake if I release this. I'd be in handcuffs and hauled away doing the perp walk in no time flat. Or if I handed in the information, they said, we want, this email from here, and I redacted half of it and said, here. I think most people reading that would be appalled. Well, he can't do that. Well, they can't do it either. Well, let me change that. They can do whatever we're willing to let them get away with. Durham should not be testifying in a closed-door session. No, absolutely not. So, we're going to listen a little bit to Senator Hawley again, like I said, with this clown from this deputy director of the FBI, but listen to this guy spin and dodge and duck and change the subject and throw out the, classified, and listen to this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Abadi, let me just stay with you. You just started to answer Senator Blackburn's question that not releasing the 1023 or talking about it as a matter of life and death. Question of life and death, you said. Explain.
It is potentially a question of life and death
For whom?
With regard to the source of the information.
So now we've confirmed that the document exists. That's progress because the FBI director initially denied that it exists. Why did he do that?
We have already and previously acknowledged the existence of the documents.
Yeah, after you first denied it. Now, when a member of this committee read it, right, the FBI director, let's just get the record straight. The FBI director initially said it doesn't exist. Then Senator Grassley said, I've read it. Then he said, oh, okay, well, gotcha. I guess it does exist. Now you're going back and forth with members of this committee what's in it. Why don't you just release it? Is it classified?
The document is not classified.
Okay. Will you commit to releasing it?
Senator, we'll take that back and we will work with you in this committee.
How about just a yes or no? Will you commit to releasing this unclassified document that alleges that the President of the United States has taken $5 million or more in bribes from a foreign nation?
The document has already been released pursuant to a subpoena to the House Oversight Committee.
Has it been released to this committee?
We'll work with this committee within the parameters that are established to meet.
Will you release the document to the public? It's unclassified. Don't you think the American people have a right to see it?
Senator, the document, as you know, contains sensitive information that has bearing on the life of the source of the information, potentially.
You can redact the source's name. We do this all the time.
In some instances, Senator, and I know you know this, that is not sufficient to protect people. And that's what we strive and work to do each and every day. And I hope you would take that seriously, too.
Oh, I take it very seriously. But I also take seriously the fact that your institution has repeatedly abused its authority, has repeatedly targeted political opponents. Your institution is the one that went to the door of pro-life protesters with SWAT teams to try and intimidate people because of their speech. Your institution is the one that treated parents as domestic terrorists because of their speech. Your institution is the one that, according to the court, the FISA court, ran 278,000 unwarranted, probably illegal queries on Americans, right? That was your institution, correct?
With respect to the compliance incidents, yes, some of the other things you cited, we can take them one by one. They are not.
Compliance, you would characterize the unlawful querying 278,000 times of American citizens as compliance issues?
We've said before, I've said that it's totally unacceptable.
Who's been fired for it?
Individuals involved are handled through the disciplinary process.
Who's been fired for it?
We have, in the case of the unintentional instance where something similar happened, we have fired people in the past.
Wait, I'm sorry. What does that word salad mean? The unintentional instance where what does that mean? Who's been fired for the 278,000 times that you improperly or illegally queried the database for American citizens? Anybody?
When we find intentional incidents.
Well, you're saying that the 278,000 queries were unintentional?
I believe that's correct.
Wow, 278,000 times American citizens' information was queried by your agency unintentionally? That's your testimony?
I would want to go back and check that, Senator. But
Well, that's what you just told me.
My understanding is that the vast majority of
That's different. You just said it was. You just said it was unintentional. Now it's the vast majority. Which is it? Do you know?
I would want to go back and check it.
So you don't know?
My understanding is that likely all were unintentional.
Likely all. So first it
nature.
was all of them, then it was vast majority. Now it's likely all. So you don't know is the answer to the question.
I don't know the answer as we sit here today, but I will
Could have
find out.
started
and I
with
will
that
get back to
probably.
you.
Who was fired for the lies to the FISA court for the Carter Page warrant? Who was fired for that? Anybody? Has anybody been held accountable for your institution deliberately lying to a FISA court to get a wiretap on an ongoing presidential campaign?
There is an ongoing disciplinary process with respect to individuals involved in that.
Here's the deal. You're back in front of us asking for the reauthorization of extraordinary authorities. Multiple courts have uncovered extraordinary abuses perpetrated by your agency. You are at the same time concealing information about serious allegations made against the President of the United States, even as your institution also targets his chief political opponent in an unprecedented way. Why would we ever give you the blank check that you want to continue surveilling American citizens in an improper manner? Why would we ever do that?
Senator, we're here to talk about reforms today. I did get confirmation that the query...
No, we're not. We're here to talk about the reauthorization of Section 702. Why would we reauthorize it, given your track record of abuse and illegal improper surveillance and political targeting? Why would we do that? Why would it be appropriate for this body to do that?
We've made significant reforms and implemented corrective measures. We've seen significant progress as a result of that, Senator. The queries that you mentioned early were in fact unintentional. That's what I was just told by my counterpart.
That is an amazing.
The earlier question.
So your testimony is the 280,000 queries of American citizens was unintentional. That's your final answer?
That's how they were assessed by that team that did the review. I'm not satisfied with that. That's why we implemented further measures, as I announced earlier today.
Yeah, I don't believe that at all. And frankly, we've heard from your agency 1,000 times that you're going to do better, will do better. You promised after the abuses of Title I, you'd do better. And then we find out that in the meantime, you're illegally querying 280,000 American citizens' data. It's unbelievable, frankly. Everything you say is unbelievable.
See, this is what we're up against. Just by the government. The laws don't apply to them. The hell with the Constitution. What we do is important. You know, the hardworking FBI agents and the overwhelming majority of them are not. No, they're complicit. They all know what's happening. Band together. And come on, expose this crap. I mean, if 100 agents came out and said this stuff, it'd become a little difficult for the FBI. And I'm tired of this crap about, if we release this, the informant might get killed. What do they know about that? Do they have information this actually is going on? That some of these mysterious deaths were actually assassinations? Somebody needs to dig into that. What are you talking about? Are we at that state in America now? We'll kill any whistleblowers? We'll assassinate whistleblowers? Really? That's called a coup. We're going to put up with that? And like I said before, then just put them in the witness protection program. But here's what you do first. Because I was in this environment for almost 40 years. Local law enforcement, we worked with the feds a lot, task forces and whatnot. You take the individual who has this information, you're afraid he's going to get killed, and you depose him. In other words, you interview him under oath, you get the information. Now, you know what? If he is killed, you still have it down. because that's admissible in court. And it's admissible under the rule that, because some would say, well, you can't cross-examine tape, an audio recording. There's a rule. If the person who did it's not available, it's admissible. So you have the information. But they have an obligation to protect them anyway. And if they're so good at what they're doing, how come they can't protect witnesses? This is amazing. All I can say is to be continued, because this isn't going away, and I'm not going to let it go away. Thanks for joining me.
Mainstream media has turned into nothing more than state-run propaganda. Bulldog TV was founded by Americans fighting for America to restore the fourth branch of government. Support alternative media like Bulldog TV by following them on Facebook and Truth Social.
You talk about race, crime, and politics. Some folks lose sleep over this, but not me, because I sleep just fine on my Giza Dream Sheets and pillow from My Pillow, especially this new 2.0. If you haven't gotten yours yet, you are missing out. Just go to mypillow.com and use promo code Clark, that's CLARKE, and save up to 66% off. The direct link is also available on my website, americasheriff.com. Get a great night's sleep so we can continue the fight. Friends, I want to thank you for listening to today's episode of Straight Talk with yours truly, America's Sheriff David Clark. And a special thank you also goes out to our sponsors. My goal, as always, is to break down these complex and many times controversial issues and bring it to you straight with a little dose of common sense, no media bias, no talking points, just truth. And this podcast would not be possible without your support. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, please leave a review at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite place to listen. And please share this message of common sense on social media. For more content, be sure to follow me on Truth Social, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And just a reminder, we'd love for you to join our Straight Shooters VIP podcast club for only $5 per month. And with that membership, you'll receive invitations to attend private podcast events throughout the year as a VIP guest when we come to your town. Plus, if you join today, you'll also receive a free coffee mug and a sample of our private label coffee as long as supplies last. Subscribe and join at americasheriff.com. This podcast is brought to you by americasheriff.com with executive producer Judy Wilkinson of JL Wilkinson Consulting and producer Josh Wentz in partnership with our friends at Bulldog Media. If you are interested in partnering with Straight Talk Podcasts or having me speak in your area, please contact Judy at jlwilkinsonconsulting@gmail.com, 706-518-2116. That's jlwilkinsonconsulting@gmail.com. Phone number 706-518-2116.